Nepal is a landlocked country in South Asia. It is mainly situated in the Himalayas but also includes parts of Indo-Gangetic Plain. It borders Tibet Autonomous Region of China to the north and India to the south, east and west, while narrowly separated from Bangladesh by Siliguri Corridor and Bhutan by the Indian state of Sikkim. Nepal has diverse geography including fertile plains, subalpine forested hills and 8 of the world's 10 highest mountains including Mount Everest, which is the highest point above sea level on Earth. Kathmandu is the nation's capital and its largest city. Nepal is a multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious and multicultural sovereign state with Nepali as the official language. The name Nepal is first recorded in texts from Vedic period of the Indian subcontinent era in ancient Nepal, when Hinduism, the predominant religion of the country, was founded. In the middle of 1st millennium BC, Gautama Buddha, founder of Buddhism, was born in Lumbini in southern Nepal. Parts of northern Nepal were intertwined with the culture of Tibet. The centrally located Kathmandu Valley is intertwined with the culture of Indo-Aryans and was the seat of prosperous newer confederacy known as Nepal Mandala. The Himalayan branch of the ancient Silk Road was dominated by the valley's traders. The cosmopolitan region developed distinct traditional art and architecture. By 18th century, Gorkha Kingdom achieved the unification of Nepal. The Shah dynasty established the Kingdom of Nepal and later formed an alliance with British Empire under the Rana dynasty of premiers. The country was never colonized but served as a buffer state between Imperial China and British India. Parliamentary democracy was introduced in 1951 but was twice suspended by Nepalese monarchs in 1960 and 2005. Nepalese civil war in the 1990s and early 2000s resulted in the establishment of a secular republic in 2008, ending the world's last Hindu monarchy. The Constitution of Nepal, adopted in 2015, affirms the country as a federal parliamentary republic divided into 7 provinces. In September 2025, protests against social media ban, economic inequality and corruption caused riots, resulting in casualties and resignation of the Prime Minister. Nepal's foreign policy focuses on neutrality, sovereignty and multilateral cooperation. Nepal admitted to the United Nations in 1955 and friendship treaties signed with India in 1950 and China in 1960.
Tourism is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in Nepal, employing more than 1 million people. The number of international visitors crossed 1 million in 2018 for the first time, not counting Indian tourists arriving by land. Nepal's share of visitors to South Asia is 6% and tourists spend much less on average in Nepal. Premier destinations include Pokhara, Annapurna trekking circuit and the 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, Lumbini, Sagarmatha National Park home to Mount Everest, 7 sites in the Kathmandu Valley collectively listed as 1 and Chitwan National Park. Most of Nepal's mountaineering earning comes from Mount Everest, which is more accessible from the Nepalese side. Nepal officially opened to Westerners in 1951 and became a popular destination at the end of the hippie trail in the 1960s and 1970s. The industry, disrupted by civil war in the 1990s, has since recovered but faces challenges to growth, owing to lack of proper facilities for high-end tourism termed the infrastructure bottleneck, mounting issues facing Nepal Airlines and handful of destinations properly developed and marketed. The homestay tourism, in which cultural and eco-tourists stay as paying guests in the homes of indigenous people, has seen some success.
Nepal remains isolated from the world's major land, air and sea transport routes, although within the country, aviation is in a better state with 47 airports. 11 of them with paved runways, flights are frequent and support a sizable traffic. The hilly and mountainous terrain in the northern 2/3 of the country has made the building of roads and other infrastructure difficult and expensive. There is a 59 kilometers railway line in the south. As of 2018, all district headquarters except Simikot connected to the road network. Most rural roads are not operable during rainy season, even national highways regularly become inoperable. Nepal depends almost entirely on assistance from countries like China, India and Japan for building, maintenance and expansion of road network. The only practical seaport of entry for goods bound for Kathmandu is Kolkata in India. The national carrier, Nepal Airlines, is in poor shape due to mismanagement and corruption, and blacklisted by the EU. Internally, the poor state of development of the road system makes access to markets, schools, and health clinics a challenge. Nepal has the worst road infrastructure in Asia.
Cultural looting is a crisis in Nepal despite efforts to combat it. Volunteers working for Nepal Heritage Recovery Campaign helped recover artifacts. In 2022, Burkett Gallery's London branch relinquished 16th-century carved wooden toana, ceremonial gateway and 17th-century stone statue of a kneeling devotee, both taken from sacred sites near Kathmandu. In 2023, Nepalese artifacts suspected of having been looted were found in the Art Institute of Chicago, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Dallas Museum of Art, Rubin Museum, and turned up in auctions at Christie's, Bonhams and other auction houses.
The most widely worn traditional dress in Nepal for both women and men from ancient times until the advent of modern times was draped. For women, it eventually took the form of a sari, a single long piece of cloth, famously 6 yards long and width spanning the lower body. It is used to cover the head and face as a veil, particularly in the Terai. It is worn with a blouse or cholo. Cholo sari has become the attire of choice for formal occasions, official environs, and festive gatherings. Faria is worn in daily life while performing household chores or labor, usually shorter than a sari in length and breadth. For men, dhoti, a similar but shorter length of cloth, served as lower body garment. Among the Aryans, it is wrapped once around each leg before being brought up through the legs to be tucked in at the back. Dhoti worn over a langoti constitute the lower body garment in traditional clothing of Faris, Gurangs, Magars, and Madheshi people. Other traditional apparel that involves no stitching or tailoring are patukas, length of cloth wrapped tightly over the waist by both sexes as waistband. Until beginning of 1st millennium AD, ordinary dress of people in South Asia was entirely unstitched. The arrival of Kushans from Central Asia, 48 AD, popularized cut and sewn garments in the style of Central Asia. The simplest form of sewn clothing, boto rudimentary vest, is a universal unisex clothing for children and traditionally the only clothing children wear until they come of age and are given adult garb, sometimes in a ceremonial rite of passage. Men continue to wear boto through adulthood. Upper body garment for men is usually a vest or shirt. Saruwal, a pair of trousers, is an alternative to and more recently, replaces dhoti. It is traditionally much wider above the knees but tapers below, to fit tightly at the ankles and tied to the waist with a drawstring. In the last 50 years, fashions have changed a great deal in Nepal. Increasingly, in urban settings, sari no longer everyday apparel wear, transformed instead into one for formal occasions. The traditional kurta saruwal is rarely worn by younger women, who increasingly favor jeans. The dhoti has largely reduced to the liturgical vestment of shamans and Hindu priests.
With diversity in soil type, climate, culture, ethnic groups, and occupations, Nepali cuisines vary substantially, using locally available spices, herbs, vegetables, and fruit. The Colombian exchange brought potatoes, tomatoes, maize, peanuts, cashew nuts, pineapples, guavas, and most notably, chili peppers to South Asia, all became staples. Cereals grown in Nepal, their times and regions of planting correspond strongly to the timing of monsoons and variations in altitude. Rice and wheat mostly cultivated in the Terai plains and well-irrigated valleys. Maize, millet, barley, and buckwheat mostly in the less fertile and drier hills. Typical Nepali meal is cereal cooked in plain fashion, complemented with flavorful, savory dishes. The latter include lentils, pulses and vegetables, spiced with ginger, garlic and more discerningly with combinations of coriander, cumin, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, jimbu. Serve on a platter or thali with a central place for cooked cereal and small bowls for flavorful accompaniments. Combined either by actual mixing rice and lentils or folded bread with cooked vegetables around. Dalbot centered around steamed rice is common example as well as dairy and sometimes meat. Chapati unleavened flat bread made from wheat flour occasionally replaces rice, particularly in the Terai. Dindo, prepared by boiling corn, millet or buckwheat flour in water, continuously stirring and adding flour until thick, almost solid consistency is reached, is the main substitute in the hills and mountains. Sampa, flour made from roasted or naked barley, is the main staple in the high Himalayas. Throughout Nepal, fermented then sun-dried leafy greens called gundruk, a delicacy and vital substitute for fresh vegetables in the winter. A notable feature of Nepali food is the existence of a number of distinctive vegetarian cuisines, each feature of geographical and cultural histories of its adherents. The appearance of ahimsa or violence avoidance toward all forms of life in many religions in South Asian history have been a notable factor in the prevalence of vegetarianism among a segment of Nepal's Hindu and Buddhist populations, as well as among Jains. Though per capita meat consumption is low in Nepal, the proportion of vegetarianism is not high as in India due to the prevalence of Shaktism, of which animal sacrifice is a prominent feature. Nepali cuisines possess own distinctive qualities to distinguish these hybrid cuisines from both their northern and southern neighbors. Nepali cuisines with generally tomato-based, leaner curries, are lighter than their cream-based Indian counterparts. Nepali momo dumplings are heavily spiced compared to their northern counterparts. Newer cuisine, one of the richest and most influential in Nepal, is more elaborate and diverse than most, as newer culture developed in the highly fertile and prosperous Kathmandu Valley. A typical newer cuisine comprise more than a dozen dishes of cereals, meat, vegetable curries, chutneys, and pickles. Kwanti, sprouted bean soup, chwela, ground beef, chatamari, rice flour crepe, burra, fried lentil cake, kachila, marinated raw minced beef, samabaji, centered around flattened rice, lakamari, and yomui are among the more widely recognized. Juju Dor, a sweet yogurt originating in Bhaktapur, is also famous. That Thakali cuisine is another well-known food tradition that seamlessly melds the Tibetan and Indian with variety in ingredients, especially herbs and spices. In the Terai, Bagia is a rice flour dumpling with sweets inside, popular among the Tharu and Maythil people. Various communities in the Terai make sidara, sun-dried small fish mixed with taro leaves, and birria, lentil paste mixed with taro leaves, to stock for the monsoon floods. Selroti, kasar, finey, and charku are among the sweet delicacies. Rice pula or sweet rice porridge called kheer are usually the main dish in feasts. Tea and buttermilk, fermented milk left over from churning butter from yogurt, common non-alcoholic drinks. Almost all Janajati communities have their own traditional methods of brewing alcohol. Raksi, traditional distilled alcohol, Jang, rice beer, Tongba, millet beer, and Chiang are the most well-known.
Among the notable trees are the astringent Azadiracta indica or neem, which is widely used in traditional herbal medicine. The luxuriant Ficus religiosa or peepal, which is displayed on the ancient seals of Mohenjo-daro and under which Gautam Buddha is recorded in the Pali Canon to have sought enlightenment. Nepal contains 107 IUCN designated threatened species. These include the endangered Bengal tiger, red panda, Asiatic elephant, Himalayan musk deer, wild water buffalo and South Asian river dolphin, as well as critically endangered gharial, Bengal florican and white-rumped vulture, which nearly extinct by having ingested the carrion of diclofenac-treated cattle. Nepal has 10 national parks, 3 wildlife reserves, 1 hunting reserve, 3 conservation areas and 11 buffer zones, covering a total area of 28,900.00 kilometers square or 19% of the total land area, while 10 wetlands are registered under the Ramsar Convention. Nepal has consistently been ranked as one of the most polluted countries in the world.
Nepal contains disproportionately large diversity of plants and animals relative to its size. Nepal, in its entirety, forms the western portion of eastern Himalayan biodiversity hotspot with notable biocultural diversity. The dramatic differences in elevation found in Nepal, 60 meters from sea level in the Terai Plains to 8,848 meters Mount Everest, result in a variety of biomes. The eastern half of Nepal is richer in biodiversity as it receives more rain compared to western parts where Arctic desert-type conditions are common at higher elevations. Nepal is a habitat for mammal, bird, reptile, amphibian, fish, butterfly, moth, and spider species. In its 35 forest types and 118 ecosystems, Nepal harbors flowering plant species.
Nepal is roughly trapezoidal. Nepal's defining geological processes began 75 million years ago when the Indian plate, then part of southern supercontinent Gondwana, began a northeastward drift caused by seafloor spreading to its southwest and later, south and southeast. Simultaneously, the vast Tething oceanic crust to its northeast began to subduct under the Eurasian plate. These dual processes, driven by convection in the Earth's mantle, both created the Indian Ocean and caused the Indian continental crust eventually to underthrust Eurasia and to uplift the Himalayas. The rising barriers blocked the paths of rivers, creating large lakes which only broke through as late as 100,000 years ago, creating fertile valleys in the middle hills like the Kathmandu Valley. In the western region, rivers which were too strong to be hampered, cut some of the world's deepest gorges. Immediately south of the emerging Himalayas, plate movement created a vast trough that rapidly filled with riverborne sediment and now constitutes the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Nepal lies almost completely within this collision zone, occupying central sector of Himalayan arc, nearly one-third of the 2,400 kilometers long Himalayas, with a small strip of southernmost Nepal stretching into Indo-Gangetic Plain and two districts in the northwest stretching up to Tibetan Plateau.
The citizens of Nepal are known as Nepali or Nepalese. The Nepali are descendants of three major migrations from India, Tibet and North Burma, and Chinese province of Yunnan via Assam. Among the earliest inhabitants were Kirat of the eastern region, Nuars of Kathmandu Valley, Aboriginal Faris of Terai Plains and Cospahari people of far western hills. Despite the migration of a significant section of the population to the Terai in recent years, majority of Nepalese still live in the central highlands and the northern mountains are sparsely populated. According to 2011 census, Nepal's population was 26 million, almost a threefold increase from 9 million in 1950. As of 2022, Nepal's population is 29 million, marking a significant increase from 15 million in 1980. The nation has a very young demographic with 56% of its population under the age of 30. The capital, Kathmandu, nicknamed City of Temples, is the largest city in the country and the cultural and economic heart. Other large cities in Nepal include Pokhara, Biratnagar, Lalitpur, Bharatpur, Burganj, Dharan, Hetauda and Nepalganj. Congestion, pollution and drinking water shortage are some of the major problems facing the rapidly growing cities, most prominently the Kathmandu Valley.
Nepal's diverse linguistic heritage stems from three major language groups: Indo-Aryan, Sino-Tibetan and various indigenous language isolates. 44% of the population speaks Nepali. Nepal is a secular country with 80% Hindu. Tibetans and Bhutanese constituted a majority of refugees in Nepal. Tibetan refugees began arriving in 1959 and many more cross into Nepal every year. The Bhutanese Lhotsampa refugees began arriving in the 1980s and numbered more than 110,000 by the 2000s. Most of them resettled in third countries. Economic immigrants and refugees fleeing persecution or war from neighboring countries, Africa and Middle East, termed urban refugees because they live in apartments in the cities instead of refugee camps. Lack official recognition, the government facilitates their resettlement in third countries. Around 2,000 immigrants, half of them Chinese, applied for a work permit between 2018 to 2019. The government lacks data on Indian immigrants as they do not require permits to live and work in Nepal.
By 55,000 years ago, the first modern humans had arrived on the Indian subcontinent from Africa where they had earlier evolved. The earliest known modern human remains in South Asia date to about 30,000 years ago. The oldest discovered archaeological evidence of human settlements in Nepal dates to around the same time. In 11th century, a powerful empire of Kos people emerged in western Nepal whose territory at its highest peak included much of western Nepal as well as parts of western Tibet and Uttarakhand of India. By 14th century, the empire splintered into loosely associated Bays Rojias, literally 22 states. The rich culture and language of Kos people spread throughout Nepal and Indochina in the intervening centuries. Their language, later renamed Nepali language, became the lingua franca of Nepal and northeast India.
In mid-18th century, Prithvi Narayan Shah, a Gorkha king, set out to put together what would become present-day Nepal. He embarked on his mission by securing the neutrality of the bordering mountain kingdoms. After several bloody battles and sieges, notably Battle of Kirtipur, he managed to conquer Kathmandu Valley in 1769. The Gorkha control reached its height when Kumaon and Garhwal kingdoms in the west to Sikkim in the east came under Nepalese control. A dispute with Tibet over the control of mountain passes and inner Tingri valleys of Tibet prompted Qing Emperor of China to start Sino-Nepali War, compelling the Nepali to retreat to their own borders in the north. The rivalry between the Kingdom of Nepal and the East India Company over the control of states bordering Nepal eventually led to Anglo-Nepali War from 1815 to 1816. At first, British underestimated the Nepali and were soundly defeated until committing more military resources than they had anticipated needed. Thus began the reputation of Gurkhas as fierce and ruthless soldiers. The war ended in the Sugauli Treaty, under which Nepal ceded recently captured lands.
Factionalism inside the royal family led to a period of instability. In 1846, a plot was discovered revealing that the reigning queen had planned to overthrow Jung Bahadur Kanwar, a fast-rising military leader. This led to the Kot massacre. Armed clashes between military personnel and administrators loyal to the queen led to the execution of several hundred princes and chieftains around the country. Bir Narsingh Kanwar emerged victoriously and founded the Rana dynasty, known as Jung Bahadur Rana. The king was made a titular figure and the post of prime minister was made powerful and hereditary. The Ranas were staunchly pro-British and assisted them during the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and later in both world wars. In 1860, some parts of the western Terai region were gifted to Nepal by the British as a friendly gesture because of its military help to sustain British control in India during the rebellion, known as Naya Muluk. In 1923, United Kingdom and Nepal formally signed an agreement of friendship that superseded the Sugauli Treaty of 1816. The Hindu practice of sati, in which a widow sacrificed herself in the funeral pyre of her husband, was banned in 1919 and slavery was officially abolished in 1924. Rana rule was marked by tyranny, debauchery, economic exploitation, and religious persecution.
In the late 1940s, newly emerging pro-democracy movements and political parties in Nepal were critical of the Rana autocracy. Following the success of Indian independence movement, which Nepalese activists had taken part with India's support and cooperation of King Tribhuvan, Nepali Congress was successful in toppling the Rana regime, establishing a parliamentary democracy. After a decade of power wrangling between the king and the government, King Mahendra, who ruled from 1955 to 1972, scrapped the democratic experiment in 1960 and a partyless panchayat system was made to govern Nepal. The political parties were banned and politicians imprisoned or exiled. The panchayat rule modernized the country, introducing reforms and developing infrastructure but curtailed liberties and imposed heavy censorship. In 1990, the People's Movement forced King Birendra, who ruled from 1972 to 2001, to accept constitutional reforms and establish a multi-party democracy. In 1996, Maoist Party started a violent bid to replace the royal parliamentary system with a People's Republic. This led to the long Nepalese civil war and more than 16,000 deaths. With the death of both the king and crown prince in a massacre in the royal palace, King Birendra's brother Gyanendra inherited the throne in 2001 and subsequently assumed full executive powers, aiming to quash the Maoist insurgency himself. The Maoist Party joined mainstream politics following the success of the peaceful democratic revolution of 2006. Nepal became a secular state, and on the 28th of May 2008, it was declared a federal republic, ending its time-honored status as the world's only Hindu kingdom. After a decade of instability and internal strife which saw 2 constituent assembly elections, the new constitution was promulgated on the 20th of September 2015, making Nepal a federal democratic republic divided into 7 provinces.
Between March and June 2025, half-dozen pro-monarchy protests took place in Kathmandu, in favor of restoring the old kingdom of Nepal, with the former King Gyanendra Bir Bikram Shah as its head. On the 19th of February 2025 public holiday commemorating 1951 revolution, Shah delivered a video speech which discussed widespread frustrations with the ruling communist government. While he stopped short of explicitly calling for a restoration of the monarchy, the speech's emphasis on unity and sacrifice was interpreted by some as hinting at a possible royal revival. On the 9th of March 2025, thousands of supporters welcomed Shah as he arrived in Kathmandu. A spokesperson for the pro-monarchy Rashtriya Prajatantra Party stated the turnout shows how frustrated the people are with the present government and they are in search of an alternative to the present system. In September 2025, widespread protests over social media ban and economic inequality led to rioting that killed or injured dozens of people, damaged parliament and other buildings, and brought about the resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, who fled Kathmandu and sought refuge with the Nepali army. In response to the crisis, the army assumed control of nationwide security and engaged in talks with protest leaders who selected former Chief Justice Sushila Karki as interim Prime Minister.
Traditional Nepali society is sometimes defined by social hierarchy. The Nepali caste system embodies much of the social stratification and many of the social restrictions found in South Asia. Social classes are defined by more than 100 endogamous hereditary groups termed as jatis or castes. Nepal declared untouchability to be illegal in 1963 and has since enacted other anti-discriminatory laws and social welfare initiatives. Family values are important in the Nepali tradition, and multi-generational patriarchal joint families have been the norm in Nepal, though nuclear families are becoming common in urban areas. An overwhelming majority of Nepalis, with or without their consent, have their marriages arranged by their parents or other family elders. Marriage is thought to be for life, and the divorce rate is extremely low, with less than 1 in 1,000 marriages ending in divorce. Child marriages are common, especially in rural areas. Many women wed before reaching 18.
Many Nepali festivals are religious in origin. The best known include Gardamai Festival, Dashain, Taiha, Tej, Jath, Magi, Sakela, Holi, and Nepali New Year. The Gardamai Festival is a Hindu religious event held every 5 years at Gardamai Temple in Nepal. It has been described as the world's bloodiest festival due to the large-scale slaughter of animals and birds, including buffaloes, goats, sheep, chickens, ducks, pigeons, pigs, rats and white mice. This mass sacrifice is performed with the goal of appeasing goddess Gardamai. Critics condemned the ritual as barbaric, unsanitary and wasteful. In contrast, Hindu devotees insist that the practice holds deep significance. The Nepali government attempted to ban the filming of these animal sacrifices. Nepali individuals carrying machetes chased animal welfare activists down the street. Witch hunts continue to occur in Nepal even in the 21st century.
The oldest known examples of architecture in Nepal are stupas of early Buddhist constructions in and around Kapilvastu in southwestern Nepal, and those constructed by Ashoka in the Kathmandu Valley 250 BC. The characteristic architecture associated exclusively with Nepal was developed and refined by Newar artisans of the Kathmandu Valley starting no later than the Licchavi period. A Tang dynasty Chinese travel book, probably based on records from 650 AD, describes contemporary Nepali architecture predominantly built with wood as rich in artistry as well as wood and metal sculpture. It describes a magnificent 7-storied pagoda in the middle of a palace with copper-tiled roofs, its balustrade, grills, columns and beams set about with fine and precious stones, and 4 golden sculptures of makaras in the 4 corners of the base spouting water from their mouths like a fountain, supplied by copper pipes connected to the runnels at the top of the tower. Later Chinese chronicles describe Nepal's king's palace as an immense structure with many roofs, suggesting that the Chinese were not yet familiar with the pagoda architecture, which has now become one of the chief characteristics of Chinese architecture. A typical pagoda temple is built with wood, every piece of it finely carved with geometrical patterns or images of gods, goddesses, mythical beings, and beasts. The roofs, usually tiled with clay and sometimes gold-plated, diminish in proportion successively until the topmost roof is reached, which is itself ensigned by a golden finial. The base is usually composed of rectangular terraces of finely carved stone. The entrance is guarded by stone sculptures of conventional figures. Bronze and copper craftsmanship observable in the sculpture of deities and beasts, decorations of doors and windows and the finials of buildings, as well as items of everyday use, is found to be of equal splendor. The most well-developed of Nepali painting traditions is the Thangka or Porba painting tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, practiced in Nepal by the Buddhist monks and Newar artisans. Changu Narayan Temple, built 4th century AD, has probably the finest of Nepali woodcraft. The Kathmandu pattern, and Bhaktapur Durbar squares are the culmination of Nepali art and architecture, showcasing Nepali wood, metal and stone craftsmanship refined over 2 millennia. The Ankijhile window, that allow a one-way view of the outside world, is an example of unique Nepali woodcraft, found in building structures, domestic and public alike, ancient and modern. Many cultures paint the walls of their homes with regular patterns, figures of gods and beasts and religious symbols. Others paint their walls plain, often with clay or chenozyom contrasted with yellow soil or limestone. The roofs of religious as well as domestic structures project considerably, presumably to provide protection from the sun and the rain. The timber of domestic structures are finely carved as with their religious counterparts.
Nepali indigenous sports, like Dandi Bayo and Kabaddi, which were considered the unofficial national sports until recently, are still popular in rural areas. Despite efforts, standardization and development of Dandi Bayo has not been achieved, while Kabaddi, as a professional sport, is still in its infancy in Nepal. Barchal, an ancient board game that is thought to have originated in Nepal, can be played on chalk-drawn boards, with pebbles, and is still popular today. Ludo, snakes and ladders and carom are popular pastimes. Chess is also played. Volleyball was declared as the national sport of Nepal in 2017. Popular children's games include versions of tag, knucklebones, hopscotch, duck, goose and lagori, while marbles, top, hoop rolling and gully cricket are also popular among boys. Rubber bands, or ranger bands cut from tubes in bike tires, make a multi-purpose sporting equipment for Nepali children, which may be bunched or chained together and used to play dodgeball, cat's cradle, jianzi and a variety of skipping rope games.
Football and cricket are popular professional sports. Nepal is competitive in football in the South Asia region but has never won the SAFF championships, but has had some success in South Asian games. It usually ranks in the bottom quarter in the FIFA World Rankings. Nepal has had some success in cricket and holds ODI status, consistently ranking in the top 20 in the ICC ODI and T20I rankings. Nepal has had some success in athletics and martial arts, having won many medals at the South Asian Games and some at the Asian Games. Nepal has never won an Olympic medal. Sports like basketball, volleyball, futsal, wrestling, competitive bodybuilding and badminton are also gaining in popularity. Women in football, cricket, athletics, martial arts, badminton and swimming have found some success. Nepal also fields players and national teams in several tournaments for disabled individuals, most notably in men's as well as women's blind cricket. The only international stadium in the country is the multi-purpose Dasarath Stadium, where men and women national football teams play their home matches. Since the formation of the national team, Nepal has played its home matches of cricket at Tribhuvan University International Cricket Ground. Nepal Police, Armed Police Force and Nepal Army are the most prolific producers of national players, and aspiring players are known to join armed forces for the better sporting opportunities they can provide. Very few players are able to make a living as professional sports people.
The emblem of Nepal depicts the snowy Himalayas, forested hills and fertile Terai, supported by a wreath of rhododendrons with the national flag at the crest and in the foreground, plain white map of Nepal below it, and a man's and woman's right hands joined to signify gender equality. At the bottom is the national motto, a Sanskrit quote of patriotism attributed in Nepali folklore to Lord Rama, written in Devanagari script, "Mother and motherland are greater than heaven." Nepal's flag is the only national flag in the world that is not rectangular in shape. The constitution contains instructions for a geometric construction of the double pennant flag. According to its official description, the crimson in the flag stands for victory in war or courage and is also the color of the rhododendron. The flag's blue border signifies Nepali people's desire for peace. The moon on the flag is a symbol of the peaceful and calm nature of Nepalis, while the sun represents the aggressiveness of Nepali warriors. The president is the symbol of national unity. The martyrs are the symbols of patriotism. Commanders of the Anglo-Nepalese War, Amar Singh Thapa, Bhakti Thapa, and Balbhadra Kanwar are considered war heroes. A special designation of national hero has been conferred to 16 people from Nepal's history for their exceptional contributions to the prestige of Nepal. Prithvinarayan Shah, founder of modern Nepal, is held in high regard and considered father of the nation by many.
The President is the Supreme Commander of the Nepali Army. Its routine management is handled by the Ministry of Defense. The military expenditure for 2018 was $398.5 million, around 1.4% of GDP. An almost exclusively ground infantry force, Nepal Army numbers at less than 100,000, recruitment is voluntary. It has few aircraft, mainly helicopters, primarily used for transport, patrol and search and rescue. Directorate of Military Intelligence under Nepal Army serves as the military intelligence agency. National Investigation Department tasked with national and international intelligence gathering is independent. Nepal Army is primarily used for routine security of critical assets, an anti-poaching patrol of national parks, counterinsurgency and search and rescue during natural disasters. It also undertakes major construction projects. There are no discriminatory policies on recruitment into the army, but it is dominated by men from elite Pahari warrior castes.
Nepal depends on diplomacy for national defense. It maintains a policy of neutrality between its neighbors, has amicable relations with other countries in the region, and has a policy of non-alignment at the global stage. Nepal is one of the major contributors to the UN peacekeeping missions, having contributed more than 119,000 personnel to 42 missions since 1958. Nepali people have a reputation for honesty, loyalty and bravery, which has led to them serving as legendary Gurkha warriors in the Indian and British armies for the last 200 years, with service in both world wars, India-Pakistan wars as well as Afghanistan and Iraq, though Nepal was not directly involved in any of those conflicts and winning the highest military awards, including the Victoria Cross and the Paramvir Chakra. Nepal pursues a policy of balanced relations with the two giant immediate neighbors, India and China. The 1950 Treaty of Peace and Friendship with India provides for a much closer relationship. Nepal and India share an open border with free movement of people, religious, cultural and marital ties. India is Nepal's largest trading partner, which it depends upon for all of its oil and gas, and a number of essential goods. Nepalis can own property in India, while Indians are free to live and work in Nepal. Relations between India and Nepal, though very close, have faced difficulties stemming from territorial disputes, economics, and problems inherent in big power-small power relations. Nepal established diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China on the 1st of August 1955 and signed the Treaty of Peace and Friendship in 1960. Relations since have been based on the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. Nepal maintains neutrality in conflicts between China and India. It remains firmly committed to the One China policy and is known to curb anti-China activities from the Tibetan refugees in Nepal. Citizens of both countries can cross the border and travel as far as 30 kilometers without a visa. China is viewed favorably in Nepal owing to the absence of any border disputes or serious interference in internal politics, coupled with its assistance in infrastructure development and aid during emergencies. Favorability has increased since China helped Nepal during the 2015 economic blockade imposed by India. Subsequently, China granted Nepal access to its ports for third country trade, and Nepal joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. Nepal was one of the first countries to recognize an independent Bangladesh, and the two countries seek to enhance greater cooperation on trade and water management. Seaports in Bangladesh, being closer, are seen as viable alternatives to India's monopoly on Nepal's third country trade. Nepal was the first South Asian country to establish diplomatic relations with Israel, and the countries enjoy a strong relationship. It recognizes the rights of the Palestinians, having voted in favor of its recognition at the UN and against the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Countries that Nepal maintains a close relationship with include the most generous donors and development partners, the United States, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Japan, and Norway, among others.